Kakadosh, Woker Or, Masechet Menahot, Daf Yomi, Daf Samgdala Mudalev 64A1. We were just talking about that. How do we know that the shitot of this was Rabbi Ishmael in the Mishnah, and Rabbi Ishmael, the son of Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka, was the same shita? How do we know that? We might. Din ma'ad kan lo kamar Ishmael hacha ela deleka b'zayim kodshim, when there's not going to be any b'zayim kodshim. So when you're going to do ketzira on 3 se'in for the omen, because there's no b'zayim kodshim, aval hatam, but over there to do with the korban pesach, when you're only going to skin the animal until half of the animal, there is bizayun kochim, because it's basically going to stay like that until the nighttime. So it looks like a nevela. So I'm going to tell you, that they hold like the Rabbanani, Nami, or the other way around. To do with the Korban Pesach, that you do it until half. You remember we said that by the Korban Pesach, there was a machloket. Do we skin the entire animal? Right, when it comes out on Shabbat? Yeah, that's what we're talking about. So do you skin the entire animal, or do you skin half the animal until the chest? So he says maybe that the Shita of Rabbi Shimon ben Roka was over there is only Ela di Tavidle, where you did it Tzorach Gavoa, which is for Hashem. Velo tzarich achul Shabbat, and you don't have to be mechalel Shabbat for the rest of the skinning of the animal. Right? Why? Because to take out the emurin and everything else, all you needed was the skinning of the animal until the chest. But here to do with the Ketzirat HaOmer, when you're reaping of the Omer, that you don't do it for Hashem, that we're talking about 3 instead of 5. Shabbat, and you have to be Mechalel Shabbat anyway. I would say that you're going to be, that they hold like the Rabbanan, right? The what? That you do the exact same amount like Chol. You remember there was machloket. Do we say that you do 5 se'in on the weekday and then 3 on Shabbat? Or do you always do 5? Meaning like this, in order to get 1 isaron of solet, a fine flour, how much of the barley do you have to come and do you have to bring? According to the weekday, if you bring 5, right, 5 se'in, so therefore out of the fine, it's very easy to get fine flour. But it's basically this, if I'm going to give you a large amount of flour, so then I'm able to sift it, and I could get fine flour very easily. But if I'm going to come and I'm going to give you a smaller amount, and now I have to come and I have to do the same amount of flour, but fine flour, I have to sift much more. I have to take out all the impurities. It's much more difficult because then I have to purify it much more. Okay. Elamar Rabba, but rather Rabba comes and he says, okay, we're 6 lines down, right from the top of the page. Okay, top of the page, 6 lines down. Elamar Rabba, but rather Rabba says, Rabbi Ishmael and Rabbi Chanina and Segan HaKohanim amru dvar echad. It was Rabbi Ishmael and Rabbi Chanina Segan HaKohanim who said the same thing. The Tramas we learned in our Mishnah, Rabbi Chanina right, Rabbi Chanina Segan HaKohanim, Rabbi Chanina Segan HaKohanim says, B'Shabbat niktzar yachi b'magal echad v'kupa achat. You remember he said that on Shabbat, right, when you bring the Korban HaOmer, remember this is 16th of Nisan. When you're going to bring the Korban HaOmer on the 16th of Nisan, it's an individual that does it, meaning only one person comes and he's Mechalel Shabbat with 1 sickle and with 1 basket. So everything's one basket, 1 sickle. Sickle is the utensil that they used to cut down to reap the barley, okay? And then with 1 human being, meaning you're not going to get 20 different people, because then they're all Mechalel Shabbat. So one person, 1 sickle, one basket. Ubechol during the weekday, you have 3 human beings, 3 people, 3 baskets, and 3 sickles. The Chachamim come and they say, Echad Shabbat ve'echad Chol, doesn't matter whether it's going to be Shabbat or Chol, B'shalosh kupot u'shalosh magalot. We're going to have 3 kupot and 3 magalot. Milo kamar Rechadin Segan HaKohanim atam, is it not written over there? Rechadin Segan HaKohanim, it says over there, Kevan devshar lo tarchinan, that since it's possible, we're not going to have the tircha, meaning we don't want you to do tircha more on Shabbat, and therefore on Shabbat it's only going to be 1 person and not 3 people like during the weekday. Hachanami, so to here, Kevin Devshar, since you could do this, so lo tarachina, we're not going to come and try to make you do more melacha, and therefore it's going to be enough with 3 se'in in order to take out the isaron, a good isaron from the Korban HaOmer. We're not going to do 5, just like Rabbi Ishmael. So says the Gemara, Mimai, who told you that? Dilma, basically like this. What we're trying to find out is who else is in the same shita, right, as the other Tana. So again, we're going to defer it, we're going to refute it, and we're going to say, Mimai, who told you that? Dilma kalo kama Rabbi Ishmael hacha. Maybe this is what Rabbi Ishmael said over there. Ela deleka pirsum minta, when there's not going to be pirsum, right, of the actual thing that's involved. Aval hatam, but over there to do with how many of the kotzrim, teika pirsum minta, you're going to have pirsum of the thing. Ema krabanan sfirale, I'm going to say that he holds like Rabbanan, inami, or akalo kamar mechanina segana kohanim atam tei bechad I bishlosha tzorek gvua mitavid kilechato. Whether it's going to be one or three, you have to do it letzorek kavua, right? Like according to the halacha, valhacha, but over here, telo itavid kilechato tzorek kavua, that it's not going to be tzorek kavua. Ema krabanan sfirale, I would hold that it's going to be like the Rabbanan. Which means that Rabbi Chanina Segana Kohanim could hold like Chachamim to do the Ketzira on Shabbat, that we have to do the exact same amount as in a weekday. Okay? So he says, Elam Ravashi, but rather Ravashi says, you're right, maybe it's somebody else. Maybe it's Rabbi Ishmael and Rabbi Yosei Amru Devar Echad. Why? The Tanan, because we learned in the Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah, we're talking about the testimony of the new moon. Remember, we have Rosh Chodesh coming up, yeah? So when we have Rosh Chodesh coming up, right, they have to come and they have to testify about the new moon. When did they see the new moon? And then they could find out when exactly is going to be Rosh Chodesh. So it says over here like this: Ben shenid whether you saw the moon, right, in a very clear way, uben nideh shelo ba'alil, or you didn't see it in a very, very clear way, mechalalin alav et Shabbat. You're allowed to be mechalel Shabbat in order to come, right, and in order to testify. So the way that they used to be mechalel Shabbat was that they had to travel, even if it was going to be outside of the tchum of Shabbat, in order to testify that they saw the new moon. Okay? So whether they saw it clearly or not clearly, they had to come on Shabbat, and even if they were, I don't know where, they would have to come and travel in order to come and in order to testify. Rabbi Yosef argues, and he says, if they saw it clearly, right? They're not going to be Mechalel Shabbat. Why? Because if it's so clear, everybody could have seen it clearly. So for sure somebody else also saw it. And therefore, why do you have to be Mechalel Shabbat to get here? You understand? I'll give you an example. It's like a Tzala case. If it's so clear and everybody is around, so why in the world am I going to be Mechalel Shabbat from far away to come to here? Right? Already here, they're going to have it. So it's very clear. You understand? That's the logic. So Milo Amar Rabbi Yosei Atam Kevin Devshar de lo Tarchinan. Hachanami Kevin Devshar lo Tarchinan. So two here, you're not going to be Toreach. So the same thing here, you're not going to come and do three singing instead of the five, right? So he says Mimai, right? You're going to do only three instead of the five. So he says Mimai. Dilba kan lo kama Rabbi Ishmael hacha. Maybe it's over here to do with Rabbi Ishmael that he says three instead of the five. Ela deleka nimtzet tamach shilan latilavo, because you're not going to find them, that you're going to put a stumbling block in the future. Aval hatam, but over there, the nimtzet tamach shilan latilavo, maybe you're going to find them a stumbling block in the future. Sayma karabanan sirle, you would hold like Rabbanan, right? Meaning like this: if right now you're going to tell them not to be mechalel Shabbat, so therefore it could be that even maybe in another time when it's not going to be that clear, they also won't come. Imagine right now, right? You're on a tzala call, and all of a sudden you come and you see there's another four guys there. So you're gonna say, next time I'm not even gonna bother. Why am I not gonna bother? Because what do you need? You understand? So what happens? We tell you you still have to do it. Why? Because what happens is next time all of a sudden there's a tzala call and only one person comes and they needed help. They needed two people minimum. So therefore they come and that's why, by the way, you should know nowadays you call up a tzala, you're not gonna get one person. You could get three. You could get four. Right? Go. What? With cars, with everything that you want. Yeah, they're all going to come. Why? Because many times you need them. And you never know who's going to be the one that's going to be able to make it first. And even if it's Shabbat. So he says, Inami, or, Ad kalo kama Rabbi Yosei hatam. When does Rabbi Yosei say over there? Yeah, you got the Gemara? Yeah, that's Menahot. That's Menahot. That's what you need. Menahot too, yeah. So he says, Ela deleka tzorech gavoa, when you don't need it for Hashem. Velo nitnat Shabbat lidchot, and you don't have to push off the Shabbat. Aval hacha, but over here to do with the Omer. Teika tzorech gavoa, nitnat Shabbat lidchot. Im akraban nesvilim, if they hold like Rabbanan, fine. Itmar. So basically, we tried to keep on saying that our Mishnah was like in accordance with other opinions as well, whether it's to do with the Kiddush HaChodesh, with the Birkat HaLevana, whether it's to do with skinning of the Korban Pesach. and many other things as well. And we kept on pushing them off because you remember, like, yesterday we already started saying that the Rabbi Shmuel was the same as the Rabbi Shimon ben Meroka. Then we started saying maybe it's like Rabbi Chanina Tzagana Kohanim. Then we said maybe it's going to be like Rabbi Yosef. And we kept on pushing it off. Okay? Itman, it was stated. Shachat shte chataot shel tzibur ve'eno tzarich ela achat. Imagine right now you do shechita on Shabbat of two chataot of tzibur, and you only need one. So, for example, it's Rosh Chodesh on Shabbat, right? Or it's on, one of the Chol Moed or whatever it is that they bring Sid Echad for the Korbanot Musafim. And now by accident they came and they did two shechitas. So what happens? Sometimes you do shechita b'shogeg. Now the problem though is it's on Shabbat. So now what do you do? Because again, obviously on Shabbat, you can't just come and start doing, extra korbanot. So Amar Rabba ve'itema Rabbi Yami. Says Rabba, and some people say it's Rabbi Yami, chayav ala shniya. You have to bring a chatat, right, on the second, the korban chatat, right, which means you thought that you were permitted to do two chataot, right, and really, be'emet, you were only allowed to do one. So you have to bring a korban chatat on that second one. Upatur l'rishona. You're going to be patur in the first one. Va'afilu nitkaper lo b'shniya. Now, even if it was that they did the kapara on the second one, and the second one became, right, the korban tzibur, right? Because, for example, let's say and then they, meaning that they spilled the blood of it, but it was sprinkled the blood of the second one. Va'afilu nimtzet rishona kechusha. Or even if it's going to be that the first one became was a skinny one, was very weakened. Okay, so therefore, lechatchila, I should have brought in the second one. You're still going to be chayav on the second one. Because remember, when did you do the melacha? On the shechita of the second one. So it means even though technically speaking, I realized that I should have done the shechita on the second one, because the first one was very skinny and very fragile, right? And therefore, but still, you're going to be chayav on the second one, because when did you do the avirah b'shogeg? On the second korban chatat. So ask the Gemara, Umi Amar Rabba Hachi, does Rabba actually say this? He says, Rabba says, Ayu lefanav shte chataot. If you have two chataot, right? One of them shemina, one of them kechusha, one of them fat, and one of them skinny. Hayu lefanav, right? So he says, shachata shemina v'achar kechusha. What if you do the shechita on the fat one and then the chusha? You're going to be chayav. But if you did the shechita first on the chusha and afterwards on shemina, you're going to be patur. V'lo, and not only that, omrim lo, havesh shemina lechatchila ushchot. They tell you lechatchila, go bring the second one and do the shechita. So therefore, basically, we have a question, a contradiction. This contradiction is telling you that not only that if you did it already, even if you didn't do it. So imagine you have two animals, right? You already did shechita to one animal. I come and I say, Baba Haki, look at this animal. It looks like yeah, too skinny. Well, bring me the other animal. And now we're going to do the shechita. So even the chatchila, you're going to do the shechita on Shabbat, on the Sheminah. Not only b'diavad, even the chatchila. So how can you tell me you're going to be chayav? So the Gemara gives two answers. Right? That means basically we're going to erase the concept of kechusha. Because really be'emet by kechusha, it doesn't apply. That means really be'emet, you're going to be patur by the kechusha. Right? Not like what we said before that you're going to be chayav. If you want, you could answer another answer. Hahi Rabbi Ami Amra velo Rabba. It was Rabbi Ami. It wasn't Rabba. And therefore, it's going to be okay. Amale Ravina Ravashi. So says Ravina to Ravashi, Nimtzet Rishona Kechusha Bivne Me'ayan. But what happens if you only found it that it's going to be Kechushim, right? When you did the Bedika after the second Shchita, right? But Mibachutz, it looked the same. Meaning, you look at the animal on the outside, they both look the same. It was only when you opened the intestines that you realized that it was going to be very, very weak. Yeah, the first animal. So he says, what's halacha? Do we go after your machshava, and therefore you did an isur, or do you go after the maaseh? Meaning, at the time when you did the shechita, there was no reason for you to do the shechita. When you saw both animals, both of them, selam shos, they were todovar. Only after you did the shechita of the second one did you realize that the beneme'aim of the first ones, the intestines of the first ones was not good. They were khushim. But really, be'emet, it's not the same. So he says, right? Or do we go after the maaseh? And the maaseh, you were fine. So Amarle comes and he says to Ravina, Lavainu de Rabba v'Rava? He says, isn't that the machloket of Rabba and Rava? To Itmar that we said in a Braita, right? We said, Shama shetava tinok bayam, ufaras metzuda la'alot dagim, ve'ela dagim chayav. La'alot dagim ve'ela dagim ve'tinok, Rav amar chayav, ve'Rabba amar patur. Imagine right now you heard, right, that a child drowned, right? So what do you want to do? Immediately you go to the sea and you set up a net. Okay, you set up a net because you want to try to catch him out and hopefully Bezat Hashem you could revive him. So what happens? You set up the net and you take out fish. So if you took out the fish without the child, you're going to be chayav on the fish. Why? You trapped. You're not allowed to trap on Shabbat. So you just trapped fish on Shabbat. But if you went and you had kavanah, right, to pick up the child, right, and the fish, right, so that means both of them together. Rava says you're going to be chayav, right, even though you saved the child. Now, when you saved the child, was that permitted? Of course, it's permitted. Pikuach nefesh, you're allowed to do on Shabbat, right? But he says, right? He comes and he says like this. He says that means according to Rava, you're going to be chayav, right? Why? You didn't have kavanah, right? For that, you had kavanah for the fish, so you're going to be chayav. Rabba Amar, you're going to be patur. So says the Gemara, Ad kan lo, right? Ad kan Rabba lo kamar patur, ela kevan deshama amnina nami data tinok, because since he heard that a child drowned, so we're going to say that the kavanah was also for the child. Aval lo shama, but if he did not hear that the child drowned, he's not going to be patur, even though he brought up the child. Meaning, even though he came and miraculously he saved the child, he didn't even know a child drowned. So why in the world is he going to be patur? So he'll be patur. What was his kavanah? His kavanah was to trap the fish. So if his kavanah is to trap the fish, obviously, and that's what. He saved the child. Yeah, that wasn't his kavanah. He's gonna be chayav. There's another language though brought down Vika Damni, right? Another version. Amar lehainu plukta to pluktayu de Rabba v'Rava. That in itself is the machloke between Rabba and Rava, right? Meaning beforehand we asked it as a question and we said, isn't that the machloket Rabba and Rava? Here in this version, we're saying that that's the machloket Rabba and Rava. What is it? The itmar, right? Shamash tavatinok bayamufaras mitzuda la lotagim. If right now you heard that there was going to be, right, a tinok that drowned in the sea, ufaras mitzuda lehalot dagim, and you place the mitzuda, you spread out the mitzuda lehalot dagim. How do you know it's paras and not parash? No. How do you know it's paras and not parash? Ufaras mitzuda lehalot dagim. So because parash is prishut, you separated. Faras is ufros, right? Lifros is to spread out. That's why we say v'yadenu firusot k'nishesh maim. Our hands are spread out, right? K'nishesh maim, right? Not you don't say that our hands are separated, right? Allah says v'yadenu pirushot, not pirushot, firusot. Ufaras mitzuda lalot dagim. You place the mitzuda in order to bring up the fish. Ve'elad dagim, and you brought up the fish. You're going to be chayav. If you wanted to bring up the child, you're going to be patur according to Rabba, sorry. And Rabba says you're going to be chayav. Rabba amar patur. Why does Rabba say you're going to be patur? Because you go after your actions. Rabba says you're going to be chayav because you go after the machshava. Okay, so basically, according to this version, that is the machloket Rabba and Rava. So basically, do we go after the machshava or the maaseh? Your kavanah. Do we go after your kavanah or the maaseh? So Amar Rabba, Rabba is going to come and he's saying, Chole shamdu legrogeret achat. Imagine right now, right, a chole, that they come and they evaluate him, that he needs one grogeret, right, in order that he shouldn't die, right? So, and then what happens? Viratsu asara bnei adam v'aviu asara grogeret bevat achat. They all come and they bring him one grogeret. So he's going to be pturin. They're all going to be pturin, right? So imagine, right? Meaning like this. We know pikuach nefesh pushes off Shabbat. They come and they see this chole that he needs a grogeret, a certain measure of food. So 10 of them go running, right? And they all get them the exact same what he needs. So what happens? They're all going to be pturin. Afilu b'zeh even one after another. Afilu kadam even if the first one already came and gave it to him, and he's already healthy. So this is the exact same case as I told you of the Atzala calls, right? He needs a Atzala member, but he only needed one. All of a sudden you get 10 of them coming. And they were all Mechalel Shabbat. They're all Pturin. All of them are Pturin, right? He says, and even if he was healed by the first one, right? By Rava comes and he asks another question. What happens right now if a chole, they evaluated him for 2 grogerot? V'yesh shte grogerot b'shte oktzin. And you have 2 different grogerot with 2 different oktzin, right? So fine, you've got two of them that are connected. The shalosh ve'oketz echad. And then you have three on another oketz. Haimina ometer, which one do you bring him? Shtai maitina, do you bring in the one with two grogerot? Even though it's going to be, right, two different maaset lishas, the chazule that's fitting for him. Or dilmar, maybe shalosh maitina. Maybe they're going to bring him from the shalosh, the kamama'ata ketzira. Because at the end of the day, you're going to be mima'et in the melechet ketzira, which means you're going to minimize in the melacha of the reaping. So says the Gemara, Pshita Shalosh Maitinim. For sure, we're going to bring him the one of the Shalosh in Oketz Echad. Right? Sametala the Mubet 64b. Te'al kan lo kamer Rabbi Shmuel hatam. When did Rabbi Shmuel say over there? Ela mishum ela dichi mimaet ba'achila kamimaet ketzira. He says when you're going to be mimaet in the shiur of the achila, you're also mimaet in the shiur of the ketzira. Meaning, how much are you reaping? Aval hacha. But here in the deans of the grogerot, dichi kamimaet be'achila, when you're going to make less in the food. Kamafsha ketzira, you're doing more ketzira. Meaning, when they're on different okets, meaning like the grogeret is on different branches, and you're going to have to reap, you have to do more reaping, right? So you're being mafish ketzira, you're doing more reaping. So vadai shalosh ma'intinan, for sure you're going to bring three of them. Okay, 64b the Mishnah. Mitzvat ha'omer lavin karov. Lo biker akarov lirushalayim. He says the mitzvah omer is to bring from the karov. What does it mean? From the closest to Jerusalem. Lo biker akarov lirushalayim. If it wasn't biker is it means that it was the bechora. Bechora means that it wasn't cooked, it wasn't ripened enough, right? Ripened. You're going to bring it from anywhere else. They once brought the korban omer, remember, from the barley, from gagot tzrifin, from bikaten en socher. Okay, says the Gemara, my tama, what's reasoning? Mishum geres karmel. It says karmel, meaning there's two reasons why do you bring it from Jerusalem. Number one, because it says karmel, and karmel, right, is notrikon, it's an acronym. Rach and mal, raka and imlelet, which means it has to be like done in your hands. So if you're going to bring it from far away, until it goes to Jerusalem, right, it's going to become hardened. So because of that, we want to get es karmel. It should be rach and mal, right? If you want, you can answer another answer. Mishum em avidin al mitzvot. If you have a mitzvah right beside you, why are you going to go all the way over there? You have it right beside you, and then that's it. Okay, two dots. Masechet haomer migagot tzrifin. Tanu Rabbanan, we learned on the Braita, Keshitzaru malchei bet chashmonai zalzeh. Right, when they came and they were fighting the two different brothers, Hurkenos and Istovulus. These are the bet chashmonai. Okay, these are the sons of Alexander Yanai from Bet Chashmonai. So Hurkenus was outside of Jerusalem, and Istablus was on the inside of the walls of Jerusalem. Every single day they used to be mishalshalim lem dinanim mekupa. They used to give them dinanim, umalin lahen, and they used to bring them tamidim. That means they used to give them the money, and they used to bring them the korban tamid. Hayasham zaken echad sheyamakir b'chokhmah yevanit. It was a zaken that knew chokhmah yevanit. Laaz lahem, so he told them on the ones that are on the outside b'chokhmah yevanit. Right, Marlayan, because if they're doing the korban tamid, and they're never going to fall in your hands. So remember, there was a civil war. Two brothers were fighting about the Bet HaMikdash. These were from Bet Chashmonai, which were Kohanim, and they wanted to go into the Bet HaMikdash. So one brother was on the outside of the walls and one on the inside. So they used to send out money on the outside. They used to send them the animals on the inside. Lemachar, the next day, they brought them a chazir, a pig, to bring up into the walls of Jerusalem. Once the pig got into half the wall, he put his nails in the wall. Eretz Yisrael shook 400 parsaot. Right, curses the person that brings up a pig, and also curses the person that teaches the son chukma yivanit. And on that moment we learned so kimata, when he got to the time of the omer, they didn't know where they were going to bring the korban omer. So they went and they said there was a person that was an ilem, right? That was a deaf mute. He put one hand on the gag and one hand on the tzrif in order to say that where they could find the seorim, which is on the gag tzrifim. Amalu Mordechai. So Mordechai came and told his friends, Mika duchta dishma gagot tzrifin. Is there a place that's called gagot tzrifin or tzrifin gagot? But kuvashkachu. They went and they found it on the Gagot Tzrifim, and that's where they were able to bring the Korban Omer. So Kibayla Atuya Shtei Alechem, when they wanted to bring the Shtei Alechem, they didn't know where to bring it from. Achrezu, so they went and they said, Gavra Charsha. They came, there was an ilem, again a deaf mute that came and he showed in his hands. One hand on his eyes, and one hand right on the socher, on the mezuzah, mezuzah tedelet. So he said Mordechai, Omika duchta dishma in socher or socher ein, right? But kuva shkechu, and they found it. So now shalosh nashim tatu shalish kinin. There were three women that they brought three kinin. Remember, the kinin is a pair of the two birds, one for a chatat, one for an olah. Chada amra, one of them says lezivati, one of them said for her ziva. Remember, ziva is in between nida, that she has a sickness. Chada amra, one of them says liyamati. Liamati, one of them says leonati. Savur mina, so they thought zivati is zava mamash. Yamati is yama mamash, which means that she's a zava because she's shofat like a yam. She's just spilling like the sea. Leonati is leonata because again ziva. The kulu, all of them are going to be one for the chatat, one for an Allah. Amar lehu Mordechai, said Mordechai, no, shema bezov sikna. Maybe they meant that sakana was because of the zov, that she was shofat so much of blood. Shema beyam sikna, or maybe she went and she was in the sakana in the sea. The shema beina sikna, the other one was she with her eyes. The chulu olot, that all of them are going to be kurban olot. It's not going to be one chatat and one olah. They're all olot. So batku baduk ve'ashkach, they did find the vaynu detran. That's what we learned. Samechia mudalef on the top. Right? Petachia ala kinin ze Mordechai. The one that knows the one that's in charge of the kinin is going to be Mordechai. And then we're going to explain why his name